We now move on to an additional member of the public, Mr. Ellis. Good morning, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. I don't have a lot to say, but I'll keep it real short here. My name's Kenneth Ellis. I'm the father of the Iraq war veteran that was shot and killed by Albuquerque police in 2010. I'm prior military. I took an oath of office to defend this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I didn't understand the domestic part of it until recently. I'm very upset at what's been going on. As you well know, we got a DOJ report that's very scathing, and I see progress, I see stuff that's happening, and it's encouraging. But the bottom line is that the city is trying to make, and we're trying to establish use of force law. Well, my thought on that is that we can put all the laws and rules in place, but not following the ones we have now. So, bottom line is if we don't have accountability and we're not enforcing the rules that we have now, what's the use in making new rules? So, it's up to you folks to, it's really hard, and I put myself in law enforcement shoes. I have law enforcement in my family, and it's really hard to discipline one of your brothers or call one of your brothers in arms out, but the reality is we have this blue code of silence, and, simply put, we are not holding our officers accountable for their actions. It's up to you folks to do that, and to reinstate an officer after you've already decided that he's not fit for the job is absurd to me. We absolutely have to have accountability, period. These men need to be held accountable. If they're not, we have officers, Chief Gordon Eaton, we have officers that shouldn't be officers. That was his words. And so, I know we go through a rigorous screening process and but when you get out there and your job performance and you have a lot of complaints against you and you're out there bullying the public or whatever, you need to be, reined in. You need to have this blue code of silence needs to be eliminated. We have to. Basically, what we're doing is we have the fox guarding the hen house here. How does that work? Absolutely, we need to have a civilian, someone that's not connected to law enforcement, someone that's not on the blue team, to hold these officers accountable, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. And so it's up to you folks to do the right thing. You got to look at yourself in the mirror, and you're going to have to answer to someone one of these days. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We're in this world, each and every one of us, and we all got a chance to earn our wings for heaven or earn our horns for hell. So I'll leave it at that, folks. Man, we got to get this thing reeled in. We've got a big problem. And so I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you.
I'm encouraged to see this. There's a lot of new faces up here. That's encouraging. I see what's going on with a lot of other things, and all that's very encouraging. But the fact is that the man that murdered my son has not been held accountable, and that's very disturbing. He's been proven in a court of law, summary judgment, violated my son's rights, killed my son. We sued him monetarily. Okay, well, that's all fine and dandy for my grandson, but I still haven't gotten justice. The man that murdered my son is still walking around out there, and he doesn't deserve to be a police officer. Look at his record. He should have never been a cop in the first place, and we have that problem with a lot of our police officers. Mr. Valderas, I know that this is probably not the right place, but I would like to hand you this if I may.
Sure.
You had given me this about 6 months ago on the Stevie Torres to fill out, and I actually, as you well know, gave you a stack of documents concerning my son's case and my dilemma. So I'm still hoping and praying for justice. All I want is the officer that killed my son to have his badge taken away and have that gun that he killed my son with taken away. And he needs to go ahead and go be security somewhere or do something else. He doesn't deserve to be a cop. And there's a lot of them out there, and you guys have got to clean the house. So please do your jobs and look yourselves in the mirror and check your scruples, check your moral values.
Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming this morning. I'd like to take us now to item number 14, year-end review. First, I want to thank each of you and for not only your patience and your efforts, but your real commitment to the works of this board. Looking back over the past 2 years, I'm really proud of the work that we've accomplished. We made a real commitment to improving board governance and oversight of this body, and as you can see, whether it is from improving decertification of officers, or being more transparent in our discipline process, or being very active in our training mission, you've had considerable movement in putting that and strengthening the rule of law across the board. And those were the 3 priorities that we set here, that we would work aggressively to having the best trained law enforcement agencies in the country, also being more transparent and accountable in our discipline process, and you've seen very strong movement in the rule of law there, and then also fully complying with open meetings, setting a high standard of governance here where we would not shy away from improving our process the best we can. I'm now taking us in a direction that I think sets a real leadership role for the state of New Mexico. And even though we've already had successes in considering discipline matters and modernizing the way we function, I believe that it's a real appropriate time to take a leadership role in the state of New Mexico. I'm hopeful that in the coming years we can take specifically a leadership role by proactively engaging very important issues that we're all dealing with in our own community, especially the ones that enforce the law enforcement community and community members within our respective areas. One of those issues that I'm asking the NMLEA board to take a leadership role is how agencies across the state are responding to officer-involved shootings and use of force incidents. As we all know, these tragedies have become increasingly common in our communities, and I believe that that this board is strategically positioned to review, audit, and also make recommendations on how departments can better comply with balancing community safety and law enforcement safety. I'm formally proposing today that this board commit to advancing this critical public safety issue, and as a way to start this process, I would be appointing a subcommittee today to conduct an administrative review and audit the policies and procedures of all and every law enforcement agency that relies upon this board's guidance in the areas of officer-involved shootings and use of force incidents. So the goal of this committee will be very simple. With the help of my staff and the subcommittee's leadership, we will request policies and procedures from all law enforcement agencies in the state of New Mexico in order to understand fully what it is that different departments are doing when they engage in this very difficult issue. The second is that this board and the supportive staff will create a report that gives a general overview of and identifies best practices and also potential blind spots as well as strengths. The goal of this report, of course, is to increase transparency, uniformity, accountability, and timeliness in how law enforcement agencies across the state are handling these very important issues. The completed report would then be presented to this board, I believe in June of 2017, for us to consider the information presented and begin to formulate some real improvements in these areas. It's important that this board, I think, have a seat at the table. And as you can tell, my office has been meeting with family members over the past year. As you can tell, we're an open forum where we listen to community members. And unfortunately, the tragedies both harm good law enforcement officers and agencies, as well as community members and family members who are suffering through this. So I'm open to discussion here today about the process, but I'm hopeful that I know this board can work together with agencies and community leaders. And with that, I would consider appointing Chief Caceres, Sheriff Waller, and Chief Solon to lead this committee. However, would open up full participation to every and all members who want to be involved in this important matter. And I'm also contributing New Mexico AG staff as well, so that you can feel fully supported. I'll now open it up for any questions or comments.
I'd like to hear.
Great. Chief?
It's an interesting concept, and it's going to a place the board's never been to. I can only imagine that agencies in New Mexico would benefit from knowing what best practices are out there or being done in New Mexico. Mind you that through ISCP, PERF, and CALEA, there are policies in place that have been tried and tested throughout the nation when it comes to use of force or officer-involved shootings. And if there is any one of the 230 agencies in New Mexico, is that right? That aren't, is that close, Brian?
It's 193 active. There's a number of spinoffs of that do total
Sure.
230, yes, sir.
I would only think that they would have policies that address both, and if not, we can help in guiding them that way and to shoring that up. I'm interested in knowing, though, Chairman, once that study's done with the help of your staff, because it is a heavy lift, and the board reviews what is essentially taking place in New Mexico, what's the potential outcome after that? Is it to provide a resource and information to the agency heads in New Mexico to hopefully get them to consider propping up and developing more robust policies and procedures and training as it relates to officer-involved shooting investigations and use of force issues? Is that the ultimate goal? Or is it more of a, we want to start passing regulatory type of policy for them to follow?
Well, I think Chief Caceres, I think the first goal is, as you said, this board is venturing out into a matter that has been left for departments and traditional advocacy in the past, I guess. And so this is, first, I believe, as you mentioned earlier, there are many unfunded mandates. The New Mexico legislature, community activists are demanding many times that departments look at themselves or are left for traditional civil litigation. This board and this report can be very helpful to at least identify what is really going on as it relates to departments. And I believe that it would serve as a real guide for departments to begin to, if there are deficiencies, to identify real roadmap to bridge community with department practices. And I think the three areas that I think this review will at least consider are improving the timeliness of how departments respond to these very difficult matters, also improve uniformity across New Mexico. As you know, I'm very concerned that that resource-strapped agencies are handling these matters in many different ways. And then ultimately to improve the effectiveness of community safety and law enforcement safety is at the helm, I think, of this report. So where it leads in terms of what types of improvements or reforms or resources, I think the sky's the limit. I think this is a trusted board of experts, and I believe our office has committed in the past year studying other states, and we've also been meeting with family members and many law enforcement leaders. But I'm now at the place in our office's involvement to really partner with this board to begin to understand the practices and the process that's currently underway. And ultimately, we certify these officers, we train them, and then we ask them to go under other department leaders. And I think that at least at this point, my expectation is just that we gather the information, take a leadership role, and then we will probably withhold judgment until we have the information back, and then at that point maybe consider making recommendations. But ultimately, it's to improve officer safety and community safety across the board.
Sure, I just, there's no way I could not embrace making New Mexico law enforcement better through the review processes. And to be honest with you, being more transparent and letting this board and the public know exactly what happens in an officer-involved shooting. I think there's a lot of things assumed, right? I think there's a lot of assumptions that it shouldn't be there. And that's a byproduct of the nature of those investigations, and that's some sort of a veil that we could lift. I don't think we also do the officers justice by certain district attorneys' offices making decisions 2 or 3 years later. That's another component where an officer, we as the public and law enforcement leaders put our officers in those positions to have to make life or death situations within seconds, only to be dissected for months and years to come. And it needs to be done. But I think at the end of the day, if we can be a board that makes recommendations to help either the training, the leadership, and of course the citizens of New Mexico understand the process and even have input, is a better place to be. I just want to make sure that we have chiefs and sheriffs for a reason. I don't want to be put in a position to be running their departments, and I've always said that about this board. It's a chief and sheriff's job to discipline their people. Right? It's our job to look at their certification and making sure that they meet state requirements. And this is an area that we've never been. I'm definitely on board. I like the idea. It's just I don't want to see it spiral out of control where I'm sitting behind this table telling the chief and sheriff what he or she may or may not do. And I don't think you're advocating that, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate that. And I also think that the subcommittee, at the first I hear of the formulation, but you've put 3 law enforcement officers on there that have been 25 plus years in the business. I would think that it would be better to maybe mix that up. We can talk about that if you'd like, but to put a little more of a diverse group on there on this board that would hopefully balance some of that and ask us those questions, because we may make the assumption in the subcommittee, well, that's easily understood, when someone outside of that say that makes no sense to me, why do you do it?
Well, we will ask our board member, maybe Burnham, to chair this.
Oh, I won't chair.
So
Second that.
I won't chair. But I will write.
I can go right. I can assure you that we're going to be very heavily involved. Everyone, I know these board members has or is dealing with this issue in the community, and my staff will fully keep everyone apprised, so this board can feel that they're fully participating.
In terms of the composition, it might be helpful to have both the citizen representatives involved, and then of course we're perfectly capable of consulting all of the other board members as we have questions.
Sure. That would seem to be appropriate. We welcome your full participation. And as I said earlier, we'll have Attorney General staff fully staffing this committee, so every board member will be advised as this develops.
So who's on it?
So our 2 citizen members, Chief Caceres, Solon, and
I would have no problem being on it.
Yeah.
okay.
So we have to limit it at 4.
Oh, yeah.
So form issues. So why don't we?
I'll be available.
Okay, we'll leave the 2 citizen members, Caceres and Solon. So 2 and 2.
And what is it called, Mr. Chairman, the subcommittee?
Yes. This would be subcommittee to review officer-involved shootings and use of force incidents in New Mexico.
Not incidents, be reviewing policy and procedure, right? Not
Impacting those issues, yes.
Okay, so we're not reviewing specific instances, more so the policy. Okay.
No, subcommittee to review
Policy and procedure.
policies and procedures for departments on how they handle officer-involved shootings and use of force incidents.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Angie, can I make an observation?
Sure, please.
I think this is a valuable dive into this topic. I think it transcends this board, though. I think this is bigger than this board and should include members of this committee outside of this board to really get the full picture of what's going on and solid input from multiple sources. I think this kind of transcends our authority as a certification and training board. This is, I think, an important issue that I definitely see your office running with, but I would encourage you to look also outside of this board and find members that may have other things to offer as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that feedback. I do believe it's a good idea when the four members meet that we do consider your recommendation as well. I can assure you that even in just gathering, gaining, and auditing the policies and procedures of departments, I'm sure this committee will carve out a place for community input and community information as well, with respect to those departments. So I'm certain that your recommendations will take. Great. Well, if there are any other questions or comments at this point about the subcommittee or any other issues, why don't we take a brief break and then we'll come back to reconvene for discipline matters. We'll take a 15-minute break.
You brought up officer-involved shootings in front of the board. What do you hope to accomplish from getting the board behind this?
Well, I'm confident that having members of law enforcement take a leadership role in the practices of departments as it relates to officer-involved shootings can do a lot to bring community together with law enforcement. And I am also hopeful that this review will improve the officer safety and the community safety of members who are dealing with this very unfortunate incident. When there's an officer-involved shooting, it tears apart a complete community, and I believe that this board is well positioned to improve the practices and procedures across these agencies throughout the state of New Mexico.
What sort of ideas are we talking about? Because one of the things that people always complain about is that, it's like someone grading their own paper, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Do we need someone outside, someone more independent, or is it just a matter of getting a lot of ideas together and see what might work?
Well, I think that this board's role is first to understand what departments are doing, and yes, a goal is to improve timeliness, transparency, and the effectiveness. We want officers and departments to be handling the community in a consistent manner, and I think that this report will inform the general public and inform law enforcement in areas that we can improve on.
Is that transparency important to you? Do you think that's, or is that an element of transparency that you think the state, the public needs?
Absolutely, and I think law enforcement taking a leadership role to try to improve the transparency and timely review of these important matters is a very bold step, but I think it's a step that's needed. As you heard earlier today, we have community members coming in who are suffering, but we also have law enforcement families who are suffering, and I think that this board and this review will be an important tool to improve the safety of the state of New Mexico. Well, my office has been directly studying other states and models, and we've also been meeting with families directly who've been impacted by this. But we're really at a place where we need to partner with the New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy Board because they are responsible for improved training and discipline matters as well. So this is a very good board that can really weigh in on this at this time. But as far as the AG's office, we'll continue to work directly with this board.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.